Here is the Party for Socialism and Liberation statement from a couple of days ago. Modi's police target progressive Indian outlet NewsClick with mass raids. You can read this for yourself at liberationnews.org. Let's get into it. In its latest anti-democratic attack on journalists, the government of Indian Prime Minister Modi unleashed dozens of raids today targeting the highly popular progressive news outlet NewsClick. Indian media outlets cited a New York Times article that smeared NewsClick journalists as the pretext for their arrests. The Party for Socialism and Liberation condemns this assault on press freedoms carried out to intimidate all those who speak out against the far-right agenda of the Modi government. Protest demonstrations in India against the arrest have been scheduled for the coming days. These widespread police raids come shortly after the New York Times published an article full of shameful McCarthyite smears directed against journalists and activists who the Times falsely insinuate are a part of a global influence operation of the Chinese government. NewsClick was one of the targeted outlets, and following the publication of the article in the Times, it became the target of intense attack by far right-wing politicians and media outlets. While posturing as a champion of freedom of the press, the New York Times in fact provokes crackdowns on free expression through their overriding loyalty to the Pentagon's new Cold War. The Modi government is pursuing an aggressive program to fundamentally reshape India and roll back many of the rights enjoyed by the people. This includes shredding the secular character of the Indian government to make way for a Hindu fundamentalist regime. The overarching goal of the RSS fash organization that founded Modi's political party, Modi's government is viciously opposed to the interest of workers and farmers, pursuing economic policies that benefit big corporations. To accomplish this far-right vision, the Modi government has been turning to increasingly repressive methods and accusing left-wing critics of being anti-national. Today's raids were justified on the basis of an anti-terrorism law that gives authorities sweeping powers and is routinely abused for political ends. Pause. Doesn't that sound like a country you've heard of before? USA? Okay, back to the statement. And this is not the first time that NewsClick in particular has been targeted by police action. NewsClick and the journalists who work there are being targeted because they dare to raise their voice against the anti-China narrative and against the far-right policies of the Modi government. They have not broken any laws, despite what notoriously untrustworthy outlets like the New York Times suggest. The PSL expresses our solidarity with NewsClick as it stands strong in the face of this latest attack. And again, you can read this for yourself at liberationnews.org. If you have more time, stay tuned for the following clip that I snagged from the Party for Socialism and Liberation's national account on Twitter at PSL National. Solidarity, comrades.
The New York Times, in their most recent hit piece, has led to the attack on Indian journalists, has led to 50 journalists who have been detained. But of course, we're not surprised that they would take issue with the real journalists from NewsClick, the people who so bravely cover the things that are affecting working class people in India.
Because we know that the New York Times has told a lot of lies. We know that they've supported a campaign of persecution that NewsClick has been facing for the last 2 years. And it's funny because in their article, they actually mentioned that NewsClick has been targeted systematically by the Modi government. The New York Times itself acknowledged it. And yet, they continue to tell these slanderous lies that today are upheld by the worst type of politicians you can imagine. Amit Shah, the Home Minister in India, went to the Parliament floor with this lie of the New York Times to say that our comrades and colleagues at NewsClick are somehow Chinese agents just because they cover the farmers' protests. And do you want to know why the BJP government hates NewsClick so much? Why they have to attack them and go to their houses with over 500 police officers to target young journalists, people who for the first time are getting to tell the truth about what's happening in their country. Do you want to know why? Why? Because they dared to cover the incredibly powerful and courageous uprising of farmers in India.
Because we know the record of the New York Times. We know that the New York Times has blood on its hands because they repeat the lies of the Pentagon at the expense of people, working people, right here in this country and abroad. The New York Times, these corporate lapdog apologists of the Pentagon, should be ashamed of themselves.